For those of you who don't know, I unboxed this 2018 Sherco 300 SER back in October of 2017. That is over 6 years ago. That is insane. I was lucky enough to have the Sherco shipped to Adventure Moto there in McKinney, Texas in the crate, so I got a chance to unbox my first dirt bike, really. I've unboxed many mountain bikes, but never was I able to unbox or uncrate a dirt bike. That was a fun experience. It's really not that big a deal, and I wish that we could order direct to consumer more often, but here we are. I took that bike, put it together, rode it a few times, and we pretty much went right to the National Enduro at the Zinc Ranch there in Oklahoma. The first thing I remember about the Sherco being like, wow, this thing is awesome at this is turning. The handling on this Sherco, and I will still say this to this day, is amazing. Now, I was told that the Sherco frame was loosely based off of the way that Suzuki frames were created, either before this, during this, any of that nature, and that is why it has such great handling and turning. It's because it's loosely based off of a Suzuki. Who knows? The thing handles amazing. So then we go into 2018. I'm on the bike a handful of months, but we've got the National Hare and Hound comes to West Texas. I go to that bad boy. I think I get like 42nd overall and third in the 30A class of it was called the Vet A, so I'm still not 40 yet. I don't even know when that happened. I turned 40 in 2019, so I'm still 39 at this point. During this time, I'm also taking the Sherco out with a lot of my friends, kind of practicing hard enduro. The rev limiter was coming up. We saw things like Red Bull Override happening there in the North Texas area. And so because of that, all of my friends wanted to go practice hard enduro, myself included. I still enjoy the technique practice that comes from trying to get yourself out of very sticky situations. I am noticing that as my speed is starting to pick up, that the suspension is a little soft for me. So as an A rider and picking my speed up again, I was noticing that as I was coming into corners, I was really taking up a ton of suspension, and it's just because the bike wasn't sitting up well enough for me, my speed, and as I was coming into being kind of like learning to be a faster rider again in that A class. Any racer or rider is gonna be able to get on this bike and have a great time, but as you start to push speed, those are times when any bike's suspension is gonna have to be tweaked or tuned for the way that you're riding. In the long run, a lot of people hadn't dealt with Sherco, so I was having trouble trying to find somebody to track down and really give me the help that I needed. So I just added a little bit more preload and we kept on going. 29th was fun. This was a year I kind of started going back to some of the bigger races again with my family and then traveling with friends. Got to go back to the Cajun Classic National Enduro, so it's like 71st overall and 4th in the A class there, 40 A class now. 2019, hitting that 40, boom, 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 over the hill, baby. Later on in the year, we went back to the Zinc Ranch. I love the Zinc Ranch. It's a super fun race. Did pretty well there too in the National Enduro. Now this is getting to that point that I'm racing a little bit more, riding a little bit more. We went to Colorado and unfortunately I got HAPE, which is high altitude pulmonary edema. Not fun. Essentially water was in my lungs. Something happened at high altitude. Had never had issues with it before. I had to come back to Gunnison and get myself a lot more oxygen. Not fun. 2019 was also when I put the new graphics on. What's crazy is those are the exact same graphics that you see now. So this was like HBD. I kind of had them help me design them, different things like that. They're a little beat up and it's making me realize that if I'm gonna keep riding this bike into 2024, I probably need to get some new plastic and some new graphics, but we'll talk about that at the end. Now 2020 was weird for everybody. This is when the pandemic hit. We were getting out and doing a lot of riding because everybody's like, you can go outside, you just have to stay in your house. All of the things. So we did that. We went and rode dirt bikes. Now I will say too, this is a time when my family, there was a lot of turmoil going on. There was a lot of changing for myself. There was a lot of changing for my wife, and the dynamic within our household had to shift. So in the long run, I didn't get a lot of riding in, but as coming out of 2020 also is when I got diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis. And honestly, I felt like crap. I didn't even know if I would be able to ride again, because as I tried to work out, as I tried to do anything physical, everything started to hurt. Nothing to do with the bike, no issues. We're still rocking and rolling, baby. At this point, the Sherco is kicking ass, it's taking names, we're going into 2021, we're having a damn good time. I did make a few cockpit updates to the Sherco though going into 2021. That's when I put the Astra handlebars on, and I've kept them on the entire time. I love how low they are. They're like a 30 mil rise maybe. I can't remember exactly the ones that I have, but honestly, that was a great upgrade for me And I do believe that it's bringing me a little bit more forward and it's putting me in a little bit more attack position. So if that's something you haven't looked at, go ahead and look into that. Again, the Sherco wasn't bad before. I just think that this position with the Astra handlebars was a little bit better for me, and it was a little bit more in an attack position. I got a chance to make it back to Oklahoma for the Cross Timbers Enduro. This is one that I've done quite a few times back when I used to follow TSAC all the time. The Sherco did me right. I think I got 30th overall and like 40th in the 40A class, 40 plus A class. Doing pretty good, man. So for a non-racer, enjoying life and coming out, I'm having a lot of fun being competitive in that nature. And it was just being a bad mechanic, right? Not paying attention to the motorcycle is what started to hold me back. It was not the Sherco, it's the way that I was treating the Sherco, and I wasn't paying attention to what she needed to make sure that I was getting the most out of her. My first ride at the Shady Burrow Enduro in Southport, Colorado was absolutely amazing. If you have not been to that race, you have to go. It's an Enduro and there are long transfer sections. You know what? Get over it. Endurance is part of Enduro, and Sprint Enduro is not where Enduros came from. Enduros came from endurance. We used to do timekeeping. We don't get to do that anymore. So we should have more Enduros when we can and the land permits that have attrition in them. Just because there's 10 miles of trail does not mean it needs to be a test. You can have that be a transfer. You know why? Because that is taking energy. It's a chance for the bike, something to happen throughout the day. Endurance is part of Enduro. Thank you, Shady Burrow, for keeping that going on. When I went to the Shady Burrow in 2021, it gave me another chance to work on the jetting for the Sherco. So there's a video floating around somewhere. I'll make sure that a card goes up for what I did to my Sherco, which is really just a two-stroke, in that case, for jetting for going to Colorado and riding there at the Shady Burrow. 2022, back to the Cross Timbers Enduro. I have started to mess with suspension a little bit. I finally changed the oil. That was another one of those things where Brian was just a bad mechanic and realized he went a very long time without servicing very much. I was doing regular air filters and regular oil changes, but by the amount of hours this bike has on it and the mileage, I needed to have been doing all of the bearings. I needed to have been doing the top end, right? So many other things going on. I think I've replaced the wheel bearings once during all this time. And I don't say that this bike isn't great. I'm just saying that Brian was a bad mechanic. When we ride dirt bikes, we have to take care of our bikes better, or we have to make enough money that makes us allowed to go to a shop to drop it off so they can do some of this stuff for us. As I mentioned earlier, the 2022 Shady Burrow Enduro was a mud fest. Mud was everywhere, right? Tons of water, tons of grime, tons of grit and grease everywhere. It was also a situation because of all the mud packing up that the bike overheated a lot. And so two things happened. One, I didn't realize that I had lost about half my radiator fluid. Also, I didn't realize that my swing arm bearings were essentially starting to rust and seize. The other piece and part of that is that there is actually an on-off switch on this bike. It's a 2018, they don't have those anymore, but it's not fully waterproof. And so what happened is a bunch of mud got in and started going in between the contacts. And so my bike would randomly die. The part that sucks from this is that did not even start happening until I was back in Colorado at the Death March, about 100 miles into what should have been a 200-mile day. The bike then started to die on and off, on and off. Morgan and I could not figure out what it was. And so I was like, listen, like if we keep going, I'm gonna get further away from the truck. And I decided to call it. So it was about 120 miles in from the Death March. I had just driven 14 hours to Colorado to do this. And I had to, essentially tuck my tail between my legs and come back. But again, none of this was the bike's fault. Does it need to have an actual power switch? No, it doesn't. And if it's gonna have a switch like that, should it be as waterproof as possible because it's an off-road motorcycle? Absolutely. But again, everything else I've told you about being a poor mechanic, it's like, man, I could have done better. And so what I did is I went home and I was like, this is it. I'm stripping this bike down and I'm redoing everything. I got a new pipe, I got swing arm bearings, I got wheel bearings, I got a new top end kit, and I even took both of the radiators off and I completely bent them back. That was a fun little journey. And so now, coming out of 2020, the Sherco is in damn good shape, and I've done a ton to make sure that it's ready to take on more years, because at this point, there's no money to buy a new dirt bike. Unfortunately, the one thing I didn't think of, though, was a dead battery. This battery is super old that was in here at the time, and I make it all the way to the Grinduro. We get out there, it's super cold, and the battery essentially poops out. That battery is probably in there 3 or 4 years. It's one of the Firepower lithium batteries. I don't blame the battery, it's just an old battery. Batteries die. So again, not the Sherco's fault, just something that Brian, the bad mechanic, should have been paying more attention to. So I had to put my tail back between my legs, head back from the Grinduro and head home. Sometimes we just gotta keep learning the hard way. Going into 2023, we got a new top end, we got radiators that are much straighter and work a lot better. We got bearings that are replaced all over the bike. Unfortunately, something else does go out. As I drive myself to Twin Hills and try to start the bike, the Bendix snaps. Everybody by this point, because of the death march and because of all these little things keep happening, unfortunately it's become nicknamed the Sure Can't. It sure can. This motorcycle is amazing and I wouldn't still have it if I didn't enjoy riding it so much. All of the things that have come up and that have been issues and that have named it the moniker the Sure Can't, they're all my fault. The bike has lasted so long with poor mechanic skills that it's done amazing. So yes, I still say the Sure Can't jokingly because it's just been named that, but this bike sure can. And if you're considering a Sherco, I would still tell you to go think about them. They create very great low-end power. One of the things that I know Cody Webb and some of the other riders there on the Sherco factory team had to do is they had to get more top end. I don't need that. It's not something I need. I'm just fine with the way that it is. But going into 2024, I don't know what I'm gonna do, right? I am at 6 years old, and the way that I'm starting to race now, I plan on doing the entire Blackjack series because I wanna race again. I wanna follow a series. I kinda wanna see all my compatriots on a normal, regular pace. Like I'm enjoying being back in the community, not just making videos here on the internet. Do I try to sell the Sherco and get a 4-stroke because I'm gonna be racing again? Do I just get new plastics, new graphics? I don't know. What are y'all's thoughts on that? What are y'all doing for 2024? Are you gonna be racing any series? I'm just excited to be getting seat time. I'm excited that I get to still make content for you guys. And I'm excited that I launched the utility can caddy. You kind of can see it in the back down there. It's a way to stay organized AF, heading to the trail and on the way back. So we've been using these gas cans for years, these 5-gallon gas cans. And now what that gas can can do, that gas can can be your everyday carry to go with you. You don't have to always have a separate goo bucket. Maybe when you're just going to the track or just going to the trail, you're gonna grab your bike, you're gonna grab your gear, and you're gonna grab your gas can. Well, now that gas can with the utility can caddy can house more things with you, and you don't need to have them loosely stored in your truck, in your moto van, or a random place that you might miss and you might forget, because you're always going to be organized AF and ready to enjoy getting seat time. So thanks guys. Tell me what you think about this 6-year review of me riding the Sherco 300 SE-R. There's a ton of footage on the old Seat Time channel if you want to watch some of the videos that I referenced. Of course, this channel here that you're watching this video on is where you're going to see new videos going forward. So if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, do whatever the kids are doing these days. It truly does make a ridiculous difference. If you want to support Seat Time with the UCC or with a shirt, sticker, a mug, whatever that is shop.seattime.co. Guys, I'm gonna keep riding the Sherco for right now. I hope you guys enjoy getting seat time. If I don't get a chance to see you on the trail, obviously I will see you on the internet, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace. Yeah! And unfortunately, like the chainsaw in its holder and everything, he just doesn't have a blade cover, obviously.
I didn't know enough for it.
Okay.
Holy shit.